started classes yet. He's there and loving dinner.
It didn't make it inside.
Huh?
It didn't make it inside.
I don't know. I took it out of the freezer.
Maybe in your car still.
Maybe. I'm not even sure if I made it in the car.
That's fine. I can do it. Okay.
That's the kind of day I'm having. That's the kind of day I'm having.
Miss it. Oh, did you get the water?
I did, yeah.
Honey, I'm just
Right at the
remembering.
Oh,
You guys don't
thank
have
you.
kids for
Oh.
like 2 or 3 more weeks, do you?
I was telling Julie that, but I'm caught up in the, Jocelyn's, we fly out tomorrow
I
morning.
black them out.
So this week has been,
It's crazy. It's crazy.
my head is spinning.
The challenge with us starting this week is we have a lot of staff. I have to take a personal day to get a kid to college in this first these opening weeks, which is totally fine. We expect it, but it's tough to start school and get your kids off to college and do all that.
Rudy was easier, and not easier, but like different. And she's just, she kind of like really was like, oh, I'm fine, it's great, I can't wait. And then this week it's been like, so I'm like,
And she's going really far away.
she was gloating about the weather, but this week she hasn't gloated at all about the weather.
No. Have her gloat about the weather when there's like
This-
smoke in the air too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
No, of course. Tell her I said good luck too. So yeah.
She is really excited though.
You should be. It's a big chapter of life.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could stand for the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To welcome everyone to the August regular meeting of the District 94 Board of Education. Mission statement, please.
Community High School strives to promote and provide growth experiences in learning, leadership, and living.
Thank you, Rich. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Here.
Mr. Amos. Ms. Munoz. Mr. Nagel.
Present.
Mr. Sake.
Present.
Mr. Zuniga.
Here.
At this point, are there any additions to the agenda? Hearing none, we move to public participation. This is the portion of our meeting where any member of the public can address the Board of Education on any topic. Presentations are limited to no more than 5 minutes per person, with a total time limit of 30 minutes for public participation. Personal charges or complaints against individual employees, volunteers, or students of the district should not be initiated during public comment. Due to legislative restrictions on what boards can or cannot comment on, the board does not engage in a dialogue during public participation, but will listen to concerns and, where appropriate, direct the administration to follow up. And our first public participation is from Patty Weber.
Hello. After I left the last board meeting I attended, I was walking down the hall and I noticed a sign in one of the teachers' rooms, and I wanted to make some comments about it. So if you can't read this, it says no food, no hoods, no earbuds, and no phones. And I thought to myself, why are teachers enforcing this, and does this vary from classroom to classroom? Is it up to the teacher to enforce this? I think all of these things are wrong for a student to be doing in a classroom. And I don't know how, we can expect their utmost respect and attention if they are doing these things, food, headphones, cell phones. I certainly know I would not want my son doing any of these things. So I guess I'm concerned that it appears that it's up to the teachers to enforce this. So this would be confusing for students to go from classroom to classroom, and sometimes they can use their phone, sometimes they can't, etc. So if that is the case, I disagree with that. I think it should be a school policy, and that the school should support the teachers and uphold children not being able to do this in the classroom for the sake of focusing on their education. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We also have 2 sets of public comments that were sent in electronically. The first one is from Matthew Tibble. And his comments are, as someone who is very interested in the recent referendum passed by the Winfield Fire Protection District, I wanted to make sure to thank District 94 and several of its board members for helping to raise awareness of issues plaguing the Fire Protection District. As District 94 knows from its successful referendum a few years ago, it takes community and leadership to get a referendum passed, and I appreciate the support District 94 and its board members provided in an unofficial capacity to protect its students outside of the classroom. I hope our community continues to thrive like this and that our spirit of cooperation continues to do great things for our voters and their families. And the third piece of electronically submitted, or the second piece of electronically submitted public comment is from Jenny Fleming. And the topic is cell phones. Could a classroom cell phone use policy be put in the student handbook? My hope is that students could keep their cell phones in their backpacks but not use them during class time. I wish there was a uniform message from the school about cell phone use expectations in every classroom so the students know the rules don't change from room to room. Thank you to the school board for so quickly considering a vote on the Blue Point security system. I appreciate your effort to keep our school safety a priority and hope the vote passes. At this point, is there any other public comment? All right, hearing none, we move to reports and information. Superintendent's report.
Good evening. There are several items I wanted to share with the board tonight. The first one has to do with FOIA requests. The district did receive one FOIA request from Quinn Taylor for a list of all vendors that do business with the district. Next item I wanted to share with the board or update the board on was on the recent CDC guideline changes. I did send a link to the board in the update to those changes. But in summary, the CDC provided an update on August 11th. And in those updates, it provided a greater flexibility and relaxed protocols for COVID guidelines. If you look on their website, there is a summary of changes that they listed, and I'll just read that off for the board. The summary of changes include removed the recommendation to cohort, changed recommendation to conduct screening testing to focus on high-risk activities during high COVID-19 community level or in response to an outbreak, removed the recommendation to quarantine except in high-risk congregate settings, removed information about tests to stay, and then added detailed information on when to wear a mask, managing cases and exposures, and responding to outbreaks. At the moment, IDPH and ISBE have not updated their documents on their websites to reflect these changes, but they have indicated that they fully support them. And as we have already started school, I will say that this has been the most normal start we have had in 2 years, which has been really refreshing and exciting to see. Next item I wanted to share with the board was the state report that I did send in an email update that's called The State We're In, and it is a study that was conducted by Advance Illinois on behalf of the state. The report, it's 50 pages long, and it outlines the effects of the pandemic on education, K-12 and into higher education as well. I've not fully digested all those pages, but they did provide an executive summary, and a couple of the conclusions that they pulled out was that at nearly every level of education, Illinois saw declines in enrollment that exceeded historical trends and demographic shifts. However, I wanted the board to know that for us here at District 94, our enrollment has actually increased a little from about 1,990 students in August of 2020 to 2,064 students in August of 2021. That's last year. And then to this year's enrollment of 2,067. So we're doing nice here. The report also makes a statement that K-12 schools lack academic resources to address increased student need for mental health supports and social emotional learning opportunities. And I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the board and the work of faculty, staff, and administration to position us well this year to meet the needs of students by providing 7 social workers, 8 counselors, and the beginning of our Den Time support program for all students. We're really excited to do that. Excited to meet the needs of our students and put learning, living, and leading back into focus of what we do here. And then the last item I wanted to remind the board was that our retreat is scheduled for September 27th at 7 p.m. with Lori Grant. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for that. Director of Business Services report.
Thank you. Tonight I'll be presenting the tentative budget for the 22-23 school year. A school budget represents the financial, operational, and most importantly, instructional goals of the school board and the superintendent. During the budgeting process, every effort was made to identify as many known revenues and expenditures as possible. As a reminder, the school budget represents only a plan, and the actual revenues and expenditures may be different than the budget. The tentative budget will be placed for public display on Wednesday, August 17th, after being presented to the Board of Education tonight. We'll come back to the board at the September board meeting, where I'll provide any changes to the tentative budget as allowed by state code. We'll then ask the board to adopt the final budget, and then we'll submit to the ISB and the county clerk by September 30th. The annual budget is 8 separate budgets for each of the listed funds and is prepared with the goal to ensure each fund is balanced and funds used appropriately. You'll find a separate section for each of these funds in the packet in front of you. Here's a snapshot of all the funds. Overall, I'm anticipating a deficit of $276,000. The deficit is a result of property taxes being received early, specifically in the debt service and tort immunity funds. We'll take a closer look at the operating funds. These are the 5 funds that we consider to be our operating funds. These funds combined have a deficit of $176,000. Again, this is mainly due to when we received property taxes, which moved about $1 million from the FY23 fiscal year to the FY22 fiscal year. As a reminder, we had a large surplus in the transportation fund at the end of FY21. So with regards to fund balance in the transportation fund, spending that fund down is part of the plan. Overall, you can see from the column on the right that our anticipated ending fund balances are able to account for these deficits. There are several sources and types of revenues which we receive on an annual basis. Our revenues come from various sources like the tax levy process, investing of fund balance, and from the grants submitted to ISB. Revenues will drive the school budget, and as such, the budgeting process begins with the revenue. Once the revenue budget is set, then we take a closer look at how we can appropriate those funds to meet the needs of our students. As expected, much of our revenue is received from the local property taxes and corporate personal property replacement tax. The state portion is mainly the evidence-based funding. The federal portion consists mainly of the CARES or ESSER funds and is normally around 5% of the budgeted operating revenue, but for this year we're at 9%. The local section of the pie chart is comparable to other schools in our area, although most of the collar counties are even more dependent on property taxes than District 94. This graph represents the property taxes we receive in each of the last 4 fiscal years, along with the budget amounts for the FY23. As a reminder, the tax levy is submitted in December, and then payments received on that tax levy are received the following June through September. As such, and because residents are paying their property taxes between 2 different fiscal years, and that D94 records revenue on the cash basis of accounting, the actual receipt of the property taxes for each year fluctuates. We'll receive the rest of the 21 tax levy and the estimated first half of the 2022 tax levy in FY23. This estimate for the 2022 tax levy includes a 5% increase and new construction. 5% increase to UAV and the known December 2021 CPI of 7%, which will be limited to 5% and the new construction. We continue to have new construction being built in the technology park and the over 55 community, but I'm assuming new construction to be less than the $25 million of the last couple of years and be closer to $15 million. As I mentioned, we received a larger percent of the tax levy in June than expected, resulting in lower receipts in FY23 when compared to FY22. Aside from our main source of revenue, which are the property taxes we just discussed, there are several other revenue sources. The main one to point out is the evidence-based funding, or EBF. Under Tier 1 funding, we are expected to receive $6.4 million this year, which is an increase of $1.2 million from last year. The other categorical funding includes CTI grant for our vocational programming and pupil transportation reimbursement claim. These are expected to see an increase in FY23, mainly due to the increase in reimbursement for higher transportation costs through the transportation reimbursement claim. A couple of large changes we have to our federal budget include the removal of food service program and the increased reimbursement of our CARES allocations. Other federal grants are expected to stay basically flat this year. The other sources listed here are the corporate personal property replacement tax and interest. The CPPRT saw a large increase last year, skyrocketing to over $3 million. CPPRT is issued by the Illinois Department of Revenue, and each year the Illinois Department of Revenue will provide an estimate. The last few years, this estimate has not been good. Their estimate for the FY23 fiscal year is actually $3.3 million. As you can see, I'm assuming a much smaller allocation of $2.1 million. With regards to interest, we're slowly seeing this creep back up as rates are coming back, and we are utilizing other interest-bearing accounts. Overall, revenues in our operating funds are expected to stay close to flat when comparing to FY22, which again is mainly due to the timing of property tax receipts. We have 8 different classifications of an expenditure per the Illinois Program Accounting Manual. As the expenditure side of the budget is prepared, the salary and benefits are calculated first, as this is the largest portion of the budget and is mostly a known expense as calculated from the collective bargaining agreements, which takes into account the salary schedule increases and lane changes. From there, discussions with department heads take place to determine the specific supplies, equipment, and software needs of the students. Educating students is a people-intensive business, so it's no surprise that salaries and benefits are the largest portion of our expenditures at nearly 60%. The purchase services and supply portions are largely made up of our transportation contract, along with software needs, maintenance and custodial supplies, and curriculum supplies. Capital outlay section includes much of the equipment and facility improvements plan. Lastly, the other section is comprised of special education tuition. Overall, the operating fund expenditures are anticipated to have a large increase due to the spending of our CARES allocation and increases in staffing, benefits, and salary. As the budget is compiled, I try to find as many knowns as possible. Some of these knowns include salaries for staff, which include the new contract for teachers and the approved MOU for support staff. Additionally, we are aware that health benefits are increasing by over 8% this year. The purchase services and supply counts have minimal increases, mainly due to the zero-based budgeting process. A few of the larger projects we intend to take care of this year include the replacement of the field house flooring, installation of Blue Point Alert, and replacement of air handlers. Lastly, tuition for our outplaced students have increased dramatically the last couple of years. I wanted to provide a quick overview of our CARES ESSER allocations. We've currently spent just over $2 million of the $5 million allocated, which included academic coaching, additional STAR Avid staffing, the field replacement for outdoor PE class use, and modular furniture from our flexible seating and commons. Looking ahead, we mainly have CARES 3 funds remaining, which we anticipate using for the development of academic initiatives like the Student Support Initiative, providing free meals, as well as addressing facility needs such as improving ventilation by replacing the air handlers in Bishop Gym. To end my presentation, I've included a 5-year forecast. The red line notes the total annual ending fund balance, and then under each fund notes its specific ending fund balance for that year. There are many assumptions that go into the forecast. With regards to revenues, I'm expecting FY23 to be the last year of the district receiving Tier 1 funding from EBF. Also, as we go further out, without a large CPI and new construction, I'm expecting the tax levy receipts to be closer to 2.5% increase. Federal grants are expected to stay somewhat flat after the CARES funding runs out after FY24. With regard to expenses, I've included teacher salary increases as noted in their newly ratified contract and continued raises for support staff as noted in their current MOU. For purposes of the forecast, health benefits are increases by 5% every year. Purchase services and supplies are increasing by 3% every year as well. To ensure our facility plan is followed, I've included enough funding to continue to follow that plan. Overall, we are still seeing an increase in funding, which will take expenses a couple of years to catch up to. But as we get closer out to FY27, we can see the red line starting to level out. As we continue to update the forecast, we'll have to continue to monitor expenses as we get closer to our overall funding level. Questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Director of Human Resources report.
Okay. Good evening. I want to start by sharing a staffing update with the board. This continues to be a top story in the news both locally and nationally. In fact, there was a recent report of one neighboring school district that is returning to school with approximately 100 teacher vacancies. Community High School District 94 is fortunate to be in a much better position this fall. We are currently fully staffed with teachers and other licensed professionals, with the exception of one school psychologist vacancy for which the special education department is working to problem solve coverage. We are continuing to actively recruit, hire, and onboard new support staff as well, with a focus on our special education program assistants. You'll see our employment recommendations in the at-table personnel report provided to you this evening. In addition, we are excited to bring a number of new substitute teachers on board and welcome back our returning subs this school year. On Friday, August 12th, we hosted an orientation and breakfast for substitute teachers, which was well attended. The feedback we're hearing time and time again from our substitute teachers is that they enjoy working in District 94 and feel valued here, both because of the work environment and the compensation. While we're on that topic, I want to mention the proposed adjustment to miscellaneous wages for 22-23, which is up for approval this evening. The amended proposal accounts for the need for external subs to cover DEN time as part of our student support initiative at the rate of $20 per DEN period. We also welcomed our largest ever cohort of 33 new licensed staff to WeGo last week. Having the ability to provide a flexible orientation day prior to the 3-day structured orientation for the first time was a huge benefit to everyone. The new teachers, school counselors, and social workers felt as prepared as they could to take on the new year. During the structured days from August 8 to 10, we were able to give new faculty a sense of what it means to be a West Chicago Wildcat, how to best support our students, and the resources and supports that are available in the district to ensure their success. I want to commend specifically Mary Howard and Nick Kemsky for the meaningful sessions that they prepared for the orientation, as well as the entire administrative team for coming together to make our new faculty feel welcome and supported. Finally, I'm happy to report that the Human Resources subgroup that formed out of the Summer Summit will be meeting monthly throughout the year. The WeGo HR Network met for the first time on July 28th, and we have another meeting scheduled for August 25th. Having the opportunity to collaborate specifically with local colleagues has generated a lot of productive dialogue and has got us started on some projects that will be mutually beneficial to all of our local schools and constituents. And this concludes my report.
Thank you for your report. Principal's report.
I want to begin tonight's report with a video that went out to our staff and community earlier today. Maybe the volume would help. So that, we don't need to watch it twice. So that is our annual We Go In With Pride opportunity. It's a great day, and we got to do that yesterday. It is a day where all students are here, but it is primarily focused on our freshman class, and it is a great way for them to start off and really have their first day of high school be a very positive one. And I'm really happy to report that the first day of school yesterday and the second day today were really great. It was special. not just because of We Go On With Pride for our freshmen, but also because it was the first, as Dr. Chang said earlier, really normal start we've had since the fall of 2019. And I really can't say enough good things about the student ambassadors you saw in that video who lead that whole day and make that day really special for our freshmen. I also want to thank our entire staff. Before We Go In With Pride, we hosted 2 days of Staff Institute last week, and the energy, engagement, positivity from our staff were amazing. And in particular, the staff members who led professional development in our Student Support Initiative were very positive and wonderful to see. Speaking of Student Support Initiative, today was the first day our DENs met, and it was great. I want to thank our administrative team, particularly our assistant principals, Mrs. Howard and Mr. Martino, for their amazing work in leading the program. I also want to thank the teacher leaders who've literally grown this from inception to where it is right now to implementation. And to really build it from the ground up has been fantastic. And finally, I want to thank the board again for believing in this initiative, supporting it, and investing in it. And I really can't wait to see and report out on all the positive outcomes this year that the program will create for our students and for our community. As a follow-up to a previous item, in June, Ms. Munoz, Mr. Sake participated in the creation of a discipline improvement plan along with administration and staff members. That plan is designed to improve the district's use of exclusionary discipline. Previously, we were cited for disproportionate use of exclusionary discipline in the 17-18, 18-19, 19-20 school years. The plan was approved by ISB. We just got that approval back this week and posted publicly on our website. And again, I want to thank everybody who participated in that, not just in developing, but also to the board for approving that plan. Moving on to extracurriculars. I think I told you last month that it was coming quickly, and now it's here. So we are up and running. Team photos for all athletics happened just before you guys all got here. And that'll be going on through the rest of the evening too. All other athletic programs, boys golf began competition yesterday, and all other athletic programs began competition this week and next week. Our clubs and activities will begin their organizing efforts as well now that we are back in school. And speaking of which, on Friday and Saturday, We Go Drama is going to put on their presentation of Hammered, a Thor and Loki play, which is based in the Marvel universe, and that will be at 7 p.m. on Friday and Saturday in the auditorium. Hopefully we'll have another packed house like we had all last year. And last but not least, we are really looking forward to hosting our families Thursday night for open house. We are looking forward to large crowds. In particular, I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to our community really seeing how great the building looks right now. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look around, but the place looks better than I think it probably ever has, at least in recent memory. And I really want to thank our maintenance and custodial staff. They've done an unbelievable job, not only in their hard work, but their attention to detail this summer. And the building was up and ready with time to spare. And that's a monumental effort. And they did a great job. And want to thank them for that. And I also want to remind the board that we have only had 2 days of school, so we have no attendance or discipline data to share yet, but I will be bringing those to you in September, along with the good news of the district.
Thank you for the update, and thank you for the nice videos. Good to see. Committee and representative reports. Do we have an update from SACID? Okay, that brings us to future dates. We have a committee of the whole meeting on September 6th, a regular Board of Education meeting on September 20th, and our board retreat on September 27th. That brings us to open comment from board members. I did have one comment I wanted to make, or one question, I guess, as a follow-up to the public comment that we had. Does our district have a uniform policy for cell phone use in classrooms and those other classroom issues, or is it up to the individual teachers to decide on those things?
It is in our student planner. I want to say it's somewhere on page 22 or 23, around there. But it does give autonomy to the classroom teacher to make exceptions to allow for that use within their classroom. And particularly, there are teachers who use it for instruction or for other activities. But we do have a set procedure and policy in our student handbook.
So the teachers can allow it, but by default, unless they allow it, they're not allowed to use it?
That's one of the reasons why at the beginning of the year, last week with our institute, our head of the dean's office, Ms. Winton, did point out to staff, you start the year, you set the tone. If you're going to be okay with that or allowed at certain times, be clear about it. If you're not, be clear about it at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so it's in the handbook, so we're covered there. All right, any other open comment from board members? All right. Any future issues that we would want to have addressed at some point in the future? All right. That brings us to consent agenda. At this point, does anybody wish any items removed from the consent agenda for separate action? Hearing none, I would move approval of the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting from July 19th, 2022, and from the closed session meeting on July 19th, 2022. Also, approval of financials, which includes the expenditures from July 15th to August 11th, 2022, and accept the financial reports, approve current expenditures, impressed fund statement, treasurer's report, statement of financial position financial report, statement of revenue expenditures year-to-date ending July 31st, 2022, three-year budget actual report, grant reports, petty cash fund report, student activity account fund balance, new vendors monthly report, quarterly financial reports, board conference travel expenses. Also, the personnel report as presented at table, and the list of contracts that are over $5,000 and less than $25,000.
Moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz. Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye. All right, there being no old business, we move to new business, separation of employment. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education accept the resignations of the following individuals: Teresa Blonda, Teacher Special Education Division; Chris Lewandowski, School Psychologist, Special Education Division; Kelsey Walker, Teacher Physical Development Division; and Catherine Wenberg, Program Assistant, Special Education Division.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is superintendent salary increase. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve a 3% increase for Dr. Cheng's 2022 to 2023 salary based upon the accomplishment of his 2021 to 2022 goals.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye. All right, that brings us to Appendix B recommendation. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the Appendix B recommendations as presented.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel. Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
All right, that brings us to miscellaneous wages amended. Recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the amended miscellaneous wages as presented in the packet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Brings us to Blue Point Alert System. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the proposal from Blue Point Alert Solutions, Elgin, Illinois, at a cost of $128,207, which includes installation of pull stations, strobes, and training, along with an annual cost of $4,696 for service and inspection and the control platform.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. So when I was reading through this, they talk about the pull stations and the mobile devices. Do the mobile devices work the same as the pull stations? Is that what they're designed for?
They would issue the same alert that the pull station would. They're smaller, and the way you depress it is more specific, so it would reduce any chance of an accidental push, but they issue the same alert.
So,
But not GPS. The mobile pendants are not GPS.
oh,
So we
meaning
use-
they don't know where you are.
Correct.
So what is the purpose of them?
Alert to make sure that communication goes out as quickly as possible, and so we can start to take the right steps to lock down the building or do whatever else we need to do to keep the building safe.
So there would be an
Pole
alert, but
station.
you wouldn't know where it was located.
No, but you would know which pendant it would come from, and then knowing which area that pendant would be deployed to, it gives you that first alert to begin the process of figuring out where.
Is that the intention, that those mobile ones would be stationed in specific areas?
Or issued to certain people that might be going to a certain area.
So I think I had these questions last month too, and I was hoping that maybe that's what the mobile devices would answer. My question being that we only have X number of pull stations, but we've got teachers inside classrooms that won't have access to the pull stations. And so then I saw that they had mobile devices, but we're only getting 8 mobile devices anyway, so it's not like the teachers would have the mobile devices. I just have this vision of something happening and everybody's stuck in a classroom. Well, granted, everybody's got their phones. I guess that's why I'm questioning a lot of this, because everybody does have their phone. And people won't seem to be, I don't know, the pull stations. If something's happening in a classroom, nobody's going to be able to leave and go access a pull station. Obviously, I want to do everything to keep everybody safe. I'm just trying to understand this particular.
And Lynn, you asked great questions at the last meeting. We definitely reflected on them. And I thought about your questions along with Chief Flory's commentary from the previous board meeting back in the beginning of the summer. And I think those two things really inform each other. So two things I heard from Chief Flory that I thought were really important is, one, if you can always do more, but the risk you run is when you stack so much on top of itself, you kind of don't know, A, what's working, but you also run the risk of some things starting to deafen you, or you get too used to it and things become background noise and maybe don't have the same level of effect that you want them to have. Additionally, it can also provide a false sense of security. So if we put one in every classroom, every closet, every corner, it maybe gives us a false sense of security while also increasing our risk of it having false alarms that might numb us a little bit to that level of alert. And the other thing I thought about too is that our school safety, it's an evolving, very complex issues in schools. It's evolved tremendously in my 20 years. We're going to add this. That's our hope tonight as we approve it, we add it. And then we're going to monitor, and we're going to learn from it, and we're going to adjust. In time, we may come back to you for more. We may say, this is really good, and it does this and this, and we see we want it here and here. But I think to make sure that we use it correctly, we learn about it thoroughly in the way that it affects our day-to-day life, and that we know what it does, we need to grow, and we need to evolve. And this start lets us do that.
Is there the capability to interface our phone system with it so that if a teacher in a classroom dialed a certain phone extension, it would trigger the system?
I don't know if to tie it directly to Blue Point, but they do have the
No, it does
ability
not.
from their phone to call emergency, and then the right people are able to make the same alert. And again, Linda, your point, there are roughly 2,000 cell phones in the building at any given time. And that is, sadly, in the majority of these cases, the first alarm bells go off by a cacophony of cell phones going to 911 from similar areas. But this gives us another layer of notification.
Okay, I guess that's where I waffle between, because it's obviously expensive. So I waffle between 2,000 cell phones versus having a pull station set up that won't even be able to be used.
Well, I would explain it this way. You got to think about the Blue Point system as one of several things that work together to help do two things. It's to either keep the building secure or to make the notification. And obviously, we're talking about really tragic, horrendous situations, but the Blue Point system is meant to be able to notify the entire building at once. It's a mechanism. There are apps that go on a cell phone. So whether it's a remote piece that is triggered or a pull station that's pulled, the app on the cell phones light up. And so through that, we can communicate and then determine location, as well as talk to all the law enforcement agencies and determine literally who is where. So the app is really key to the process. But it works in concert with the ALICE training that's going to come through the Navigate 360, which is the run, hide, fight training, which a lot of institutions, whether schools or hospitals or businesses, use. So in a tragic, horrendous situation like that, if you think about what happens, everything, all those pieces happen at once. You have a run, hide, fight situation where you're going to have adults and students making that decision based on their location. So if you're really far away from the incident, you don't have to hide, get out of the building. But it's meant to put in the hallways the opportunity for those in a situation like that to make sure that other people in the building know what's going on, and that's what the poll station is for.
Okay.
So it's meant to work as a system
Okay.
altogether, not an answer for everything.
Thank you for the explanation.
It
I
would-
appreciate it.
It would be helpful for us maybe to understand and also to explain to the community what, from the administration standpoint, what is the objective of the Blue Point system?
To Dr. Chang's point, it's an immediate way to alert law enforcement, but also the whole building, as opposed to the ripple effect or trying to figure out what's going on. Everyone knows immediately what's happening, and the law enforcement response is very quick.
Okay, so it's not intended to identify the specific location of an incident, just to let the whole building know that something's going on.
And then to Dr. Chang's point, when that app, it does create a thread that law enforcement has access to where you can see if you're starting to get information, they're able to see trends of where it might be occurring at. So it is a useful tool after the fact.
It's more of an information system than a alert system, I guess.
Well,
Both, I would say.
the first primary piece is to alert the whole building. That's really the advantage of a Blue Point system, is once you pull that, all of them go off, the whole building hears it. We can also
You can get to it. I
If you
think
can
that's
get to it.
That's the issue.
But we can also do the same with our phones by going over the intercom, but again, it's if you can get to the phone. So we're just layering all the aspects to be able to, all the opportunities to be able to notify the building at once. At the same time, there's a benefit because it notifies immediately the law enforcement agencies, and it does, whether through the app or through the actual poll station, identify the location of where the poll station is pulled. Again, you know, nobody likes to really dwell on this, but in a situation like that, the location of the prime threat does move. So it could be starting in one location and moving throughout. The whole point is to activate and get the alert out so that the teachers and the students know to do run, hide, fight, and assess the situation and get out if they can.
So a silly question, you know how when you have a home security system or a business that is protected by ADT and, you know, whether that defers anybody or not, do we get stickers to put around that say, you know, protected by Blue Point or something like that? Is there any way of
The stickers
letting
are,
the community know that, hey, we've got this in addition here, so go find yourself another school?
you know what? If not, we should,
Actually,
we should, if not, we should
We don't want
suggest
them to
it.
find any school.
Yard signs, Blue Point installed recently. I don't know the answer to that, but the poll stations themselves are very visible.
Right,
So
but those
in
are
some ways,
already in
they'll-
the building. I'm
within the building,
thinking
you
of,
mean
you know,
outside.
protecting
Well, that's a
outside,
great-
deferring it.
There'll be a few
Great question.
strobes and lights and things like that that are outside the building, that if it is pulled, that the strobes will go off on the outside of the building. But as
Not
far
as an advertisement, though. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess I'm thinking, you know, somebody decides to come and do harm and sees, oh, you know, you guys have this additional layer of protection, maybe not such a good idea today.
I hate to say this, Rich, but if someone's intent on doing harm, they're going to do harm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not thinking
They're not
logically.
thinking of stickers or, you know, laws or warnings or, you know, am I going to be following the rules? They're not going to follow the
They
rules.
don't even care if they live, to be
Correct.
honest.
So
Yeah.
we're just doing this to be able to provide layer support for our faculty and staff and students to both know when something's happening, get the law enforcement here as fast as we can, and then activate, run, hide, fight.
I do like the strobe lights, to be honest with you. I think that's, I don't know, it just seemed appealing to me. And for one thing, like you said, there'll be some outside, and it kind of lets the community know, too.
So will it also be hooked up, let's say, over at the athletic field? So if something were to happen out there, you could trip the whole system and as well as notifying out there?
So that's where the pendants come into play, the mobile pendants. But if you were on an athletic field and it was set from inside, you'd be able to see the lights from the outside, so you would know something's happening within the building.
What's the range of those mobile pendants? Are they good to, like, with the baseball fields and things like that, you know?
I don't know for sure, but I
should.
thought it was a good range that we discussed that with the baseball fields, and they seemed confident that it was going to reach that far.
It should more than cover the fields within our perimeter of all that.
As far as the placement of these pull stations within the building, was that reviewed by the West Chicago Police Department, and are they comfortable that that makes reasonable sense from their perspective?
Yeah, our SRO participated in that, but we reviewed it from an administrative standpoint along with, and looked at it both what they recommended along with some alterations, very minor, that the administration made just based on spots, and then also cameras that would be able to give us a view of if a station were pulled, who pulled it, when it was pulled, and what happened.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't just going with the vendor recommendation, that it passed additional review.
Oh, there's little cameras on the pull stations?
Well, there is a pinhole camera on the pull station, but we also want our cameras from above. So that way someone can't come beside it, reach over and do. That way we can see 100% who, goes to a station and pulls it.
Now, will these be active only when school is in session? I'm thinking about all the, from our bargaining and things, all of the activities that go on weekends and evenings and things, where people that aren't necessarily invested in what goes on at the school might be here, would they be able to pull an alarm just to mess around or something?
These are all similar to fire alarms, so they're
24/7.
They're 24/7, but again, to Will's point, that there's cameras on every one of these pull stations.
Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Thank you very much for the fast action on looking into that. I think that's going to be very helpful to us. And what's the time frame that we're looking at for implementation?
Fingers crossed to have it go live on right around Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. That brings us to Navigate 360. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the proposal from Navigate 360 Richfield, Ohio at a cost of $19,425, which includes an e-learning course, onboarding, virtual training for threat assessment, team training, and on-site risk assessment, along with an annual cost of $3,960 for the threat assessment platform.
I'll move.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question, I guess, just looking at the numbers and stuff, because I thought I remembered that I thought the Blue Point was going to cost almost $100,000. So was that kind of adding this in with the other? So as a package, it was
Yeah,
almost
Navigate,
$100,000.
so Blue Point is 128,000. Navigate 360 is separate.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
separate, basically threat assessment platform, as well as training for ALICE, or the Run, Hide, Fight protocols.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, thank you. Sorry.
Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
That brings us to appoint local election official. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education appoint the administrative assistant to the superintendent and secretary to the Board of Education as the local election official.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Ms. Casey Mayer.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Mr. Nagel.
Aye.
Mr. Sake.
Aye.
Mr. Zuniga.
Aye.
All right, that concludes the regular business for this meeting. We will be going into executive session for purposes of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees and collective negotiating matters, and we will not be taking any action after executive session. Is there a motion?
Move.
Second.
Roll call, please.